There you are, sir. Thank you very much. Hello, 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 hello. Look at that. That's just, it's just so wonderful. And, well, that's me. Hopefully you're not really disappointed. It's a bit of an old picture. But anyway, it's so great to be here. It's like, that's not him. It's like, it's not this one. But definitely, I'm going to take you to a different place because I want to play a little bit of a game with you. So provided that this works. Yeah, presentation. So, okay, so what I would like to do, well, provided that it works, because I don't want to, just change the, well, there we go. Yeah, the presentation is here. So it's all about community intentionality, but I want to play a bit of an engagement game before I can. So, well, we're close enough to Hollywood, right? Well, closer than, my hometown, which I will not tell you for obvious reasons, because, Molly actually, Margot actually, wants to play this game. So basically, I love movies. I presume that there are some movie lovers around here, some IMDb, community, ambassadors, members and stuff. So I have some movie lines, some movie quotes, and I would love you to help me complete them, if that's okay with you. Is that all right? Well, go for it. I'll start easy. You know this one? So who can tell me? Go for it. Anyone? Yeah, you never know what you're going to get. Yeah, I will not. It's Forrest Gump, 1994. I will not even entertain a southern accent, just say, well, people will kill me. We don't want to do that. So it is a box of chocolates, and it is pretty much true anyway. So I'm going to make it a little bit, difficult now. So feel the need for speed. Yes, just film just down the road in San Diego, Fighter Town in San Diego. It is Top Gun 1986. I can't believe, it's been, what, 30 years? 30 years, it's just... Well, not 40 years, not even 30 years. Anyway, that was the one. I'm going to start turning up a notch a little bit. Roads. Well, I thought it was a bit difficult. It isn't. It is, of course, roads where we're going. We don't need any roads. It's not Emmett Brown. Just down the road, Back to the Future. So who can tell me the bonus? This scene actually appears twice. No? On Back to the Future 1 and 2. At the end of it and then the beginning of it. So anyway, don't quote me on that one. This is going to be a little bit more difficult, but the people who saw this film, it's actually a reference to another one. Buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy. What's happening after that? Because Kansas is going bye-bye. This is Cypher from Matrix. It's actually a reference to The Wizard of Oz in 1939, where Dorothy just says, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. It's actually a good, also, sort of a launching mantra for communities. It's like, Kansas is going bye-bye. Just, just go for it. Definitely. There's no going back now. And easy again. You know this one. You never talk about Fight Club. And that's the reason why, in a way, we're in community intentionality. So my beautiful wife, who's also not far away from here, for a number of reasons, she had never seen the film Fight Club. Well, I had never seen some of the, seminal films anyway, so it's not a problem at all. So we just, sat down and watched it again quite recently. And as a community builder, I figured out that this film was all about communities. It actually starts in communities of circumstance, so to speak. Some people affected by, some illnesses and everything, and all the actors are getting a strange kick out of, just being in these communities, even though they were not affected. And you really cannot get more intentional than a Fight Club community, can you? With all the rules and everything. And these rules are adhered, for lack of a better word, religiously. And that's what it actually inspired me, in a way, to talk a little bit more about community intentionality, so to speak. It's a bit of a made-up word. It's a real word. It's not like a word. It's not like something that I've just coined myself. But I will try and make an attempt to define it. And yesterday I was talking to one of the guests of the event, and he was just going. He said, "Look, I'm not going to be able to attend your session. So can you please define it to me? You're actually doing this session to me." That was in the middle of a bar, which was a bit of a funny thing to rehearse. But this is what we did. Anyway. Intentionality is something that we've been talking about with a lot of people, and it's not new. So Rosie Sherry, you may know Rosie already, one of the great figures of community building. She sent this tweet many years ago now, talking about a community where you get booted out for inactivity. Hands up if anybody has actually been booted out for inactivity from any community. We were just talking about. Well, you see, it's real. It's something that we've been talking about for some time. So basically, Rosie actually tried to test this. Decided to test this as an experiment, and we'll come to that. And it's not only Rosie, but this is, I hope I'm saying her surname right, because she's so meaningful to me as a community builder. Mili Tamati from New Zealand. That's a wonderful Maori surname. She actually lives, this wonderful lady, every time I speak to her and I see her, and I met her in Prague, I am completely crushed by the wonderful things that she's done in her life as a community builder. She lives in a remote island in Scotland with something like 160 people, 7 hours from any civilization, basically. You can't get more intentional than that. And she's the founder of a community called Generalist World. That's basically the biggest community of generalists, jack of all trades around the world. And she's recently tweeted this, recently just put this together, which is called Intentional Community Design. Of course, it was never as big enough to show it on your screen, but there's some thoughts about how, why, the tech stack, code of conduct, outcomes, rituals. These are the things that I'm going to sort of try and circle around, and then hopefully we'll give you some pointers as to how you can install more intentionality, or how you can gauge it for your community as well. So that's like another one. And of course, that was Laiste Oliveira from Portugal. She has this wonderful book called Hacking Communities, and she was talking at Clock Tower Advice's event the other day, and she did say, community for me is about being in transition. So in any community, whether it's about the product or service that you buy, you're talking about people going from A to B. So it's a powerful tool for people going through transition to find help from going A to B. So it's basically, as community builders, sometimes we just get into the whirlwind of community building, and then we just tend to forget what the communities are really for. And this is what I'm going to try and see if I can talk a little bit more about, and then basically wrap intentionality around it. So let's define this thing. My definition. Hopefully you'll have yours. There's a quick shout out to my business partner and great friend from the community world, His Royal Serene Highness Sir Todd Nielsen OBCB, of course, lots of British titles for someone from Pittsburgh. That's really interesting. He's such a good sport. I pull his leg about all this all the time, and he's like, come on. But this is the concept of intentional community. Again, not new, but if you look it up, it just comes up as the idea of communities purposefully designed around social ideas or collective values. So I just, took that a little bit around and just said, community intentionality could be referring to the level of intensity, focus, and deliberations of the actions of the community towards its goals and value produced for members and sponsoring organization. So it is the intensity, it is the level, it is the proper focus to the value that you would like to deliver both to the members and the organization. Again, as community builders, you might just go duh, but it's the reason why we're holding these events, because we just tend to forget even the most basics, and we just get into the fact that we want to have this biggest community of all time, or where people are all sorts of happy, and then we just tend to forget the reasons why. Just a general observation. So it's important to try and remember that, because I'm going to give you some interesting examples where community intentionality turned up to the hilt actually was the right thing to do for these members. So we have some characteristics around here, not an exhaustive list, but it's about, maybe you've already been part of these communities or similar communities like this, Think about it. Maybe yours is one or few. We're talking about high barriers to entry and very specific member requirements. You just have these, sort of requirements for these members to satisfy, just to be able to be considered to be admitted to the community. Well-designed member onboarding process with very clear expectations about what they need to do, how they need to contribute, how often they need to contribute, whether they're allowed to be lurker or not, or whatever. And there's a formal orientation process, or even a buddy system, where you're just pairing them with someone who's already in the community. There's detailed, frequently updated guidelines, really clear guidelines, something that in many communities, they're still sort of outdated, sorely missing, and some governance structures where, things are dealt with very, very swiftly. And there's, thinking of, being swift, there's an ever-present community team. If something happens that is not allowed, so to speak, it's dealt with swiftly. That's a song from a band called Skyclad, swiftly and ruthlessly in a way. And the community culture is kept in check through that. And of course, this is something that is a controversial bit. Maybe that's the reason why, you got kicked out in a way, or I got kicked out in a way. There's severance for non-performing members. Look like run like a business. But, it actually works for some communities, and I will give you some examples. And there's some benefits to it. There's much more pronounced value proposition for members. So there will be some communities around the world, perhaps some communities of practice where people are trying to support each other to do stuff against, an ever-rising, an ever, massive wall, mountain of, problems and, challenges that are ahead of them. And perhaps, just, putting the head down and then basically just getting to work together is the way to solution. And of course, that means that there's higher and much more sustained levels of engagement, because that's what the expectation is, and that's what everybody agrees that is required to produce the value. And of course, it enables the organizations to come up with a clearer and bolder strategy for them to pursue within these communities. And very interestingly, it acts as a flywheel for the community life cycle. So I saw these communities basically turning into consultancy companies, agencies, interesting, umbrella bodies for these communities of practice, eventually, becoming a formal structure to support the members in getting where they want to get. And an intentional community is the perfect place for that, I found. Let's go to Act 2 and all these examples that I've been talking to you about. Bookington. You may not heard about it because, Margot, I cannot tell you I cannot tell people where I'm from. It's a community in wherever. I'll just say it's a community in Turkey because it's on the slides. You can't really hide it anymore. But it's a community of professional editors. I don't know if you've come across any communities of professional editors and people working in literature and publishing business yourself. It's just the name is in English and the rest of the conversations and everything is in Turkish. So its aims is to develop and support the culture of readership, writing, translation, literature criticism. Basically, it's quite a focused, a niche thing. And the members are professional editors, translators, other professionals from the industry. And community of all platforms on the planet, they are using WhatsApp to converse, and they maintain the Bookington.com website as the main content outlet and the social media that actually comes with it. So they actually treat this platform, they treat this website as the shop front. So as a shop window for the skills of these editors. Just being an editor is difficult in all parts of the world. It's even, more difficult in Turkey. So it only made a lot of sense for an intentional community to come together in Istanbul or Turkey or whatever, and then basically support each other as a great community of practice. And they completely intentionalized it. How? We have sterile cockpit communications. Any pilots around here? Any amateurs, professionals? No? Yes? Well, basically what sterile cockpit is, it doesn't nothing to do with the cleanliness. In a plane, you can't get a clean part anyway. It's about the conversations that take place in the cockpit that are recorded. So in the critical phases of flight, like landing, takeoff, and stuff like that, you're not allowed to talk about things that do not pertain to the processes. So, you're not going like, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 as you're landing. It's like, oh, well, my son's got, birthday coming up. You don't do stuff like that. That's what is called sterile cockpit. So that actually refers to intentional communities as well. On this particular WhatsApp thing, which is, as, basic as maybe sort of, pigeon communications, it's so cool that these people are not talking about anything that doesn't pertain to the division of tasks and what the community needs to do that week. So if we're focusing on the actual website to be updated, or all the other things that actually need to be done in this community, these are the only things that have been talked about. So we have daily stand-ups to do that, and there are no lurkers. You're expected to work your way around the rotational responsibilities that they are assigned to you every week. So what happened with that one? The intentional approach actually resulted in members progressing with their editorial careers in that, most difficult of settings. And the new editors, they had a stepping stone to be able to be recruited and to get into the, to get a feed into the industry. And the Bookington.com, you remember the institutionalization bit. They were able to recruit some sponsors, some, big, publishing houses, and pivot into a fully fledged publishing consultancy. If there was no intentionality for that particular thing, probably it would not have happened. It would have been just a conversation place for editors. But it didn't work like that. I'm a high energy person like Marco, but right now I'm going to take you a little bit of a dark place, and that's the reason why the screen is a bit dark. So the 6th of February 2023, 4:17 a.m. It's a Monday morning, and we're in southeast Turkey. What happened was the biggest natural disaster in the history of the country, struck the southeast part of Turkey. We're talking about an earthquake measuring 7.7 on the Richter scale, but it wasn't the Richter scale. Well, you guys being from California, we have a sister, fault line to San Andreas, so it's nothing new in Turkey. But this one was very different. It lasted for 80 seconds, 1 minute and 20 seconds, which is colossal for an earthquake. It's actually like two chambers, connected to each other. Completely obliterated an area that is close to 100,000 kilometers squares, that is 38,000 miles square. So basically, 10 big cities were severely affected. The official death toll stands to 50,500. It's much higher than that, that's been predicted. And 15 million people were affected at, one way or the other. So I don't know of anyone whose friend or family is not affected by this. Massive scale, and there's no country in the world that is, completely prepared for a scale like this. It's as big as countries. We're talking about, as big as Hungary, as big as Czech Republic, Austria, Netherlands, well, twice the size of Netherlands, so to speak. An area completely obliterated by this massive disaster. So that was the problem, and it was a shock for everyone. And what was the worst was that we saw that there were people under the rubble, somehow being able to get connected to the internet for one reason or the other, texting and crying for help. This is what my address is. Can you come and, can you immediately send, some heavy lifting equipment to get me and my family out of it? And there's nothing you can do. And it is a nightmare. But the community will actually drag us out, and an intentional one. Two developers were thinking the same on the Monday morning, on the early hours, completely shocked. They just couldn't think anything else, just like us. And they said, what can we do? They opened the Discord channel, and they just said, let's get some developers together, see what we can do with this, information that is just, just pouring through social media. That quickly snowballed into the largest, after disaster probably, gathering of developers around the planet. That quickly snowballed into 24,000 developers on Discord channels coming together and then starting to deliver some platforms that would do, it's called AYA, the Open Software Network, Açık Yazılıma, and it started delivering platforms where this information was scraped from the internet, and then it was put on a heat map so that the rescue workers didn't spend any time, because it was a race against time, to find these people. Normally, it would take a company months to do that, but with 24,000 developers working intentionally together, it was in a matter of hours. So that's how it is. Became the world's largest community of practice for developers. They, of course, everybody being shocked with this disaster, it was so intentional, everything was completely geared towards that. There was no other thing to talk about, of course, just as well. It prompted all the conversations and actions to be focused, intentional, deliveries with unprecedented speed, and no attrition. self-organizing division and delegation of things, it was only natural that something like this was produced in a matter of hours, and this was passed on to the authorities. A heat map of sorts where you're able to see people looking for aid, looking for immediate support, and all sorts of other things. And afterwards, another platform for aid matching, where there were people who were just pulled out of the rubble. They lost everything that they had, and of course they needed things like tents, some shelter, food, and all sorts of other things. And there were, all the aid was pouring in from inside Turkey and outside, of course. So it just needed a bit of matching so that it wouldn't go to waste. And this wonderful community delivered that one as well. And they went on to international media. And by the way, as CMX, we should take a little bit of a credit for saving these people's lives. Let's not say credit, but thank ourselves. Because thanks to this wonderful community, I was able to get in touch with a number of people in platforms like Discord, because with the 24,000, they started to hit the limits. So Discord was actually sort of flailing at one point, and this wonderful community actually helped just open up the capacity so that they could keep on working. And they eventually ended up in international media as well, on Wired and Euronews and everything else. And an intentional community is that. Okay, so number 3. So let's take you out of the darkness and into something more exciting. Let's get to the future. The Fractionals United. It sounds like a soccer team, but it isn't. It's well, that's another cue of where I was, for a long time, and in my accent and everything else. So now you've probably figured out. So Fractionals United is a community of fractional executives, as the wonderful Richard calls it, part-time work. But it's slightly different than that. It's basically a fractional executive is someone who actually occupies the place at the board, gets a lot of accountability, but does this on a part-time basis. I know it flies in the face of a lot of the things that we know, but it is something that has been done for some time in terms of C-level, CFO, CMO, COO, and in my case, and I'm doing it myself, CCO, Chief Community Officer on a fractional basis, and I'm supporting a startup in Turkey in that capacity. So it's only natural that I've joined this community of Fractionals United. What's the intentionality? Which was wonderful to see. It had very specific admittance criteria. You had to be a leader. Some detailed structured onboarding documentation with clear expectations, and a channel with everything and every local presence with very swift governance. So if you post something in the wrong channel, it gets deleted, handed over to you over a DM, so you just post it into another channel, which was very interesting to see, for a volunteer community, so to speak. And of course, if you were sharing anything like an exclusivity, if you're sharing any opportunities in fractional work, there was exclusivity, so you wouldn't be able to share it with anyone else for 48 hours, which was interesting. What happened with that one? It became the largest gathering of fractional executives worldwide, over 5,000 members, which is surprising for something so interesting. Led to a lot of projects, collaborations. There's a greater awareness of fractional leadership, so to speak. So more people know about this. And there's actually a summit that's taking place in Minnesota this October. And of course, for us, we now have legitimate fractional chief community officers like me and a few other people that I know that are doing this on a part-time basis, but helping communities get to where they want to be. And finally, the last example is independence. This is from wonderful Rosie. You remember the tweet? So Rosie actually founded this. It's a community for indie founders, for independent founders, the founders who don't want to, take on the world, but just have a profitable company. So Rosie was a little bit sick and tired about not being able to maintain and discover online supportive friendships and network. So founded this community for, indie founders who seek a friendly and supportive environment, some, people from various, parts of journey. And she kept it intentionally small, capped to 100 members. You remember this one? She promised, she delivered. Basically, if you're inactive, you get booted. And it's a paid community, but the fee is lifetime. So it's actually a tool for basically the intentionality bit. You just you pay it, but its fee is lifetime. But if you just rejoin, you just have to pay it again. What happened? The community, half of the community members survived the first 12 months. There's a strong bond, sense of belonging. I'm not going to go through it again. Well, it's hopefully recorded anyway, so if you want to, it's on the website as well of The Independent. But people like Sebastian, they were very happy about the community itself, and it actually provided a great place for them to converse with like-minded founders. We're getting onto home stretch now, just as well, because I'm running out of time a little bit. How to intentionalize communities. 101, you know this already. Again, wonderful Richard actually put us together very well. We have, 5 types of communities. We tend to forget it in the whirlwind of stuff. Practice, action, place, interest, and circumstance are, the communities that is a dissection of community types. And I just thought, perhaps this could be put together on an intentionality scale. So perhaps a community of place could be less intentional, and a community of action more intentional. So if I put it like this, perhaps a community of action, practice, and interest, of course, have that sort of, intentionality, embedded into it. Again, I don't want to, bore you with this, but, the wonderful Richard actually put together a concept of Fever of hybrid communities as well. So a community is not one type, but it could be just, 2 of it. So these are some of the types. And I've taken the liberty to put it together like this. How about less intentional, a place of interest and circumstance, start with that, and then an action and practice, the 2 that are most intentional, to my observation, could be the more intentional one. And a good quote from Emily, people act out of self-interest and, they're not there to give back. There must be something in them. This was something that was in London that I've heard during DevRelCon. And I thought that, it's great to be included here. So we just tend to forget this. Finally, volunteer functions inventory was something that I saw when I was doing some work for motivation. And these 6, by Claire and Snyder, 2 psychology professors, they just wanted to identify why people would volunteer. And these were the 6 functions or the 6 motives that they came up with. If you look at it, that is the case perhaps why we join communities. Whether it's values, it's with our gaining with our in accordance with our values. We want to understand more about the world. We want to enhance our skills. We want to progress with our career. We want to socialize, or one of the most controversial ones, we've done something bad, so we're feeling guilt, and we are in a community, and we want to put it right. Who knows? I've put this together, and I just said, why not, deploy for community intentionality? Just understand what the members want. Speak to your members. Find some strong trust relationships with them. And then basically, if the community is large, just use, some sampling mechanisms, some bottom-up feedback mechanisms, such as community advisory boards, to make them understand, to get to understand what the motivations are, maybe in line with VFI or whatever else. And put the member journey, member growth, member value at the core, and then wrap the value around it. And it could be related more than one function. That's how it works. And just identify the ones that are more popular in your organization, and then basically just base your intentionality upon it. And some recommendations that I'm going to whiz through. This is fun. This is 1977 from Apple. Empathy, focus, and impute was the 3 things that they were talking about. Keep that 1977 thing. So basically, those 3 were the things that they wanted Apple customers to feel, and perhaps these are the things that you would like to get your community to feel as well. And it's expected even in the most relaxed of communities, and it starts outside the door. So decide on who to keep outside is as important as who's allowed to join the community. Some solid welcome process, guidelines, instructions, expectations, just in line with what I've said. And the member expectations on value, community culture, community rhythm, and intentionality, intensity, you must be studying them well. So too much pressure on detachment, and the community will fail. And I will leave you with this wonderful quote. The road to hell is not paved with good intentions. It is paved with lack of intentions. And I live by it, and I swear by it. Thank you. Before I leave, well, it's just because we're in Silicon Valley. So imagine I had a turtleneck, thingy, before we go, with a device in my hand. I'm just going to leave with a curtain call. Did I say to you 1977? I know a few people are, quite happy about that one. Can you complete this? People, of course you were groaning. Of course you were, Wars of the Stars, nerd alert. So complete it for me, please, even though you may not like it. It's not I'm your father, it's the other one, and you will love this. The force will be with you always. What force you will like it? I found out that the earlier screenplay of Star Wars: A New Hope in 1977 actually included this line: the force of others will be with you always. So the actual force was actually the force of community and all the other people. So until we meet again, the force of others be with you, people. God bless.